Tonight, welcome to Teleislas News with the most relevant and important information of the day. Winds of change are blowing in the governor's cabinet, favored Hawkins chagrin in the secretaries of Mobility and Finance.
The version of possible movements that will eventually take place in the coming days in two of the cabinet secretaries of the departmental administration is gaining strength. These are the Finance and Mobility offices. The current Secretary of Finance, Luis Viloria, who will move back to the Secretariat of Mobility, where he previously served during the administration of All for a New Beginning, is presumably the move to be made inside the Coral Palace. Likewise, all indications are that Charles Livingston, who held the position during the administration of Auri Guerrero Bui, will become the Secretary of Finance. This new shake-up in the Hawkins government brings with it significant challenges for those who assume the leadership of both secretariats, where there are important issues to be crystallized. As this news is confirmed, the winds of change in these two offices of Governor Everett Hawkins Chagrin's cabinet are gaining strength.
The 7th Chamber of Review of Protection of Constitutional Court issued an order in favor of Josefina Huffington Archibald, President of the Citizens Oversight Office of All Providence, who filed a protection action considering that the fundamental rights of the Rizal people to life, health, human dignity, petition, prior consultation, ancestral and collective property of the territory, and cultural integrity had been violated.
The writ described the action presented by the Rizal leader to file the protection action after the passage of Hurricane Iota in Providence. The document reads, "The National Navy is building against the will of the Rizal people a Coast Guard station in the Bay of Old Town, in the same place or very close to where before Hurricane Iota the fishermen's dock was located. In 2015, through a prior consultation, the Rizal people had already opposed the construction of this station in a previous consultation. The plaintiff also claims that the Ministry of Housing and the UNGRD did not take into consideration the observations of the community on the importance of rebuilding the septic wells of the houses with 3 compartments made of metal, as it was before Hurricane Iota. It also included issues such as environmental damage and the prevention of new phenomena on the island. In view of this, the 7th Review Chamber of the Constitutional Court considered it necessary to decree provisional measures ex officio in order to protect the fundamental rights of Mistress Josefina Huffington Archibald and the Rizal people of the islands of Providence and Santa Catalina.
Teleislas News learned during the morning that the Attorney General's office dismissed and disqualified former Governor of San Andres, Providence, and Santa Catalina, Auri Socorro Guerrero Bui, for a period of 8 years.
According to the investigation between August and October 2012 and of 2013 and a large part of 2014 and 2015, the auditing of an agreement entered into in 2012 with the IPS Universidad de Antioquia was not contracted. The Attorney General's office dismissed and disqualified for 8 years the former governor of San Andres, Providence, and Santa Catalina, Auri Socorro Guerrero Bui, who was the governor of the islands for the period from 2012 to 2015, for not having the audit to ensure the proper execution of a contract.
And from the neighboring country of Venezuela, the islander's Dr. Damian Mercado denied the information circulating about the presumed release of Nayib Morales. This is what he told us.
After information circulating in social networks about the alleged freedom of the island doctor Nayib Morales in the Venezuelan country, Teleislas News, in order to confirm this information, got in touch with the island doctor Damian Mercado, who is currently in the neighboring country in charge of the case of his colleague. Mercado denied that Nayib had been released today. What he shared with this news agency is that there was a hearing for Dr. Nayib in which the island doctor declared the facts and had the opportunity to defend himself.
Lo que sucede es que hoy efectivamente...
What happened today is that there was indeed a hearing for Dr. Nayib where he testified before a judge and explained his situation, explained and gave details on what happened.
The island doctor said that the 45 days for the investigation will expire on Sunday. He also stressed that the intervention of Dr. Nayib was well taken by the prosecution and the judge that annexed it to the file. Morales continues in the struggle to prove his innocence to obtain his freedom, but he is still deprived of it.
Tal vez hubo un malentendido, tal vez hubo un...
Maybe there was a misunderstanding or a misinterpretation of the information. I do not know who would have leaked the information. We hope that this can be clarified because these cases are quite delicate here and publicity and media exposure is not well seen in this country. So this could be counterproductive for the case.
Dr. Damian Mercado clarified that in the country of Venezuela, he is in charge of the case of his colleague Nayib Morales at the request of his relatives. He said that as soon as there is new information or any change in the situation, he would personally provide details. He concluded by inviting the community to handle the situation with prudence and discretion, taking into account the way it is handled in the neighboring country and how it is frowned upon.
The former candidate to the House of Representatives, Carlos Bryan, filed a request to revoke the registration of the candidate Mendez last March. In the last hours, it was known that the request was admitted in the National Electoral Council.
Last March 22nd, former candidate to the House of Representatives Carlos Bryan Uribe denounced presumed irregularities in the elections of March 13th in our archipelago. At the time and before the cameras of this news agency, the former candidate stated that he questioned to a great extent some acts presented during the elections in Providence, for which he filed before the National Electoral Council a request for the revocation of the registration of the then candidate for the Cambio Radical Party, Jorge Méndez. This is what former candidate Carlos Bryan said at the time.
Lo que nosotros hemos hecho como grupo es...
What we have done is to go to the due process. But here we have to speak clearly. We are making some claims before the respective authorities in this case because of everything that happened in Providence, where there are 6 tables in which the voters exceeded 50% of the electoral capacity, and this is something that the software alerts. Then, the duty was to count the tables to verify that indeed the vote was cast. The third place is that in Providence, the chain of custody was broken. We have evidence that the delegate of the registrar's office counted the votes, which is illegal. We have the videos where the tri-key ballot box has only 1 key.
In view of these facts, it was informed that today the National Electoral Council admitted the revocation request since it met the legal requirements of timeliness and formality and proceeded to notify those involved in the case. It is expected that in the next few days the process will move forward.
As of today, associations of rural producers from the departments of San Andres, Amazonas, Vaupés, and Guainía may submit their project profiles to the Rural Development Agency.
Rural Development Agency opened a call for registration of integral projects profiles of agricultural and rural development for 4 departments until June 15, 2022, among which is the archipelago of San Andres, Providence, and Santa Catalina, with the purpose of strengthening the Rural Development Agency's bank of productive initiatives to be co-financed.
We opened a call to receive profiles of productive projects in San Andres, Providence, and Santa Catalina as the first department, second Amazonas, third Vaupés, and fourth Guainía. This call is for you. It is a great opportunity for agricultural associations of small and medium producers in these departments to access state resources to move forward with their enterprises.
It is important to note that our profile initiatives must comply with the requirements defined in the specific conditions document in order to continue to the diagnostic, structuring, evaluation, and qualification phases, and aspire to co-financing resources from the Rural Development Agency. The results of this call will be announced on July 8th through the entity's website.
The DIAM today provide information about a low pressure that is forming in the southwest of Mexico and announced the effect it will have in our island.
According to the press release, according to the National Hurricane Center near the Yucatan Peninsula and in the southeast Gulf of Mexico, precipitation and disorganized thunderstorms are associated with low pressure, which maintains conditions conducive for further development. The disturbance maintains a probability of tropical storm formation at 70% for the next 48 hours and 80% for the next 5 days. Therefore, IDEAM informs about the indirect influence that the disturbance could cause in the sector of the western Colombian Caribbean Sea, including areas of the archipelago of San Andres, Providence, and Queclina. Generating cloudy conditions with moderate to heavy rains, probability of thunderstorms, and gusty winds in the aforementioned areas. Additionally, IDEAM warns and recommends that the National Unit for Disaster Risk Management and the departmental and municipal councils of the Caribbean region and the archipelago of San Andres, Providence, and Queclina, together with the community, take the necessary measures to avoid loss of human lives and property, activating the reinforcing prevention measures aimed at reducing the risk associated with the probability of occurrence of these events.
Good evening to all our viewers. This is the most relevant information from Old Providence and Queclina. A new desalination plant with capacity for 600 cubic meters of water per day will start operation in July in Old Providence.
The second desalination plant that seeks to supply the water deficit for inhabitants and workers of the reconstruction is already in Providence.
The desalination plant is already being installed at this moment, and we are going to improve the drinking water service for the whole community. It is a support that the Superintendent of Domiciliary Public Services is giving to us, and it will have a production of 600 cubic meters.
The desalination plant will cost 7,572 million pesos for 18 months.
Currently, the plant has the capacity to produce 600 cubic meters per day or 600,000 liters per day, which will be in two processes: injection to the aqueduct network that currently exists in the Smooth Water Bay sector and loading of the tank car.
The contract includes the collection, production, treatment, and supply of 600 cubic meters per day.
The plant is made up of reverse osmosis equipment. The treatment technology has a direct intake from the sea. This intake will be stored in ISO tanks of 15 cubic meters, and from there it will go to a treatment by filtration.
The first test will be done this month, and it is expected that in July the community will have access to drinking water.
And in other news, some diabetic patients talk about the difficulties they have had since Nueva EPS transferred the supply of medicines to the island of San Andres.
Various patients raised their voice of dissatisfaction since apparently their medications cannot be claimed in Old Providence. The service was transferred to San Andres.
It's not only just send and look the medication, it's about kafangi a problem, don't to forgive your medication. I have a problem with it, and I'm very serious. I'm diabetic. I have high pressure, I have cholesterol, I have a whole pile of things. And I need control every month. I send my paper to San Andres, and first they say the glucoclick machine that they use, them not give that. I have to tell the doctor to change it over, give me a new formula. The doctor did it, and I sent it to San Andres. Now they say I can't get it because I have to send my history. No, I don't want to send no history because a pharmacy can't ask me for my history.
Some patients have to pay third parties to claim their medication. It is cheaper than buying them due to their high prices.
Well, right now the situation is bad because our insulin, we can't get it in time here. We used to get it Providence, and they suspend it here Providence. We have to go San Andres by the doctor, make they check you up. After they check you up, you're credit by the Nueva EPS, and they give you 72 hours before you can get it by the Nueva EPS. So between that 72 hours, you can do because you can't get your medicamentos.
In communication with the manager of the Nueva EPS, confirmed that there is a person in charge of dispensing medicines in the hospital pharmacy, and that the route is to send the scanned prescription to San Andres and the medicines are sent to Providence. He clarified that at the moment there is no possibility to maintain a stock in the municipality due to the lack of a suitable place for storage.
And this is all the information we have for tonight for this section of Old Providence and Queclina. Continue in San Andres, Lisa, with more Teleislas News. Good night.
Thank you, Millian. With news of the municipality, we reach to the end of our broadcast. See you tomorrow at 1 p.m. with more of Teleislas News. Good night.